Glad to be with you. It's been a while since we've done an Ash Wednesday here. What else could we do? I started this off really well. Sound like I have a stroke. When we have TheQuartering.
That's me.
Is that your last name?
Unofficially, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have Jeremy, of course, of TheQuartering. I don't even. Honestly, you're in my phone as Jeremy Quartering.
That's fine by me. I'm not offended by it.
Okay.
You know, I think you're in my phone as like LWC parentheses do not answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, often it's just the company name is Prick.
Yeah.
So, but this Prick is going to teach you how to smoke a cigar here today.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
You can watch him on Rumble at 5:30 Eastern. Jeremy TheQuartering has been a friend of the show, and we've been a fan of his for a while. I know I kind of pre-lit that for you, but if now...
You sell me out immediately?
No, because a lot of people who want to look like they smoke cigars, they don't realize that if you light it unevenly, you're actually not getting the blend that they intended. So now you.
But now they're going to know I didn't know that.
Well, it's fine though. I want you to have a good experience. It's not about appearing like you smoke cigars on a yacht. It's about enjoying the experience.
Well, I was just about to roll out cigar brand cigars.
Oh, jeez. It's probably coming from the same factory. So.
Distinguished. Mm-hmm. I feel a little bit smarter too.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you do. So. That's all that matters.
Baseline.
If you feel smart, that's today's mantra, right? If you feel it, then it is so.
Well, placebos are real.
They are real.
Yeah,
they are incredibly real. And then you have some people. Well, you were saying when you were staying here at the hotel. Before we get into some of these topics, there's some crazy people who've been trying to offer you. Once they found out you were a YouTuber, right? That's the term they use now. They wanted to offer you like homeopathic medicine.
It may be fine, but I prefer to talk to a doctor generally. Mm-hmm. Generally,
especially if I'm going to be stripping down.
Well, they had to say it's been a long time since I've had to do a suppository, so I was like, I need to talk over to my doctor.
Oh, I don't have to do a suppository. I just strip down. It's just standard protocol.
Oh, when the doctor walks in the room, you're nude.
I just like the feeling of the butcher paper on my skin the way God made me.
That really is nice. There's something very utilitarian about that.
Yes. That's like, let's just skip this here. Let's get to why you came into the office, doctor. It turns out that's not why he's come at all. He's actually come to examine my health.
Oh.
So they're trying to get...
Miscommunication.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're trying to, sell you on like homeopathic medicine on your channel?
It was some sort of stuff. Oh, they're going to be mad now when they see this.
Oh, I'm sorry. We don't have to. I don't want to throw them under the bus.
I won't mention them by name.
Okay. Susan.
And their product might be fine. Mm-hmm. But I was just thinking to myself, like, I've never met Steven Crowder before. I'm not even bringing anything to shill of my own, but I'm going to go here. Hey, check out this drug that I don't know anything about.
Yes.
You should talk about it on your show.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. But it was weird because it was the hotel, very nice people, but there were a lot of Australian people there, New Zealanders, and they were all like, there were people that looked like hippies, and then there were people that looked like pharma bros. But they were all like the same convention. And I thought about trying to sneak in there because I was curious. You know, I'm always trying to follow the new thing because sometimes it's real.
Sure.
You know, like CBD, for example, it can be good.
Right.
But it also can be sold as like a panacea cure-all, which I don't like.
Exactly.
So I try to stay aware of, what's the next thing.
There are a handful of supplements that actually are kind of proven. One is creatine that people sort of know about. If you need a multivitamin, turmeric curcumin is one, and fish oil, and some people even argue about that. Then there are others for specific issues that maybe make sense, but when they sell something as like you said, a panacea, a cure-all, no single substance can do all of those things. I don't know if you're it's not out, but you might need to be a little more aggressive with it. There you go. CBD is a good example. Like we have a sponsor, CB Distillery, and their stuff is lab tested, which is great. That what you're getting is exactly what you're getting. They don't go too far off the beam with the science. Like it's the same thing with marijuana in general. Yeah. Like I do think it has some uses. We've talked about that. I think it's very overblown. Where they, especially the commercials now, like wake and bake. Like here's the thing: no one says wake up and drink, you have a problem. But wake and bake, and you can get at the gas station like 250 milligram gummies where you're on the moon.
Yeah, that's I've been to the moon. It's not that great. And then the problem is once you're on the moon at 8:30 in the morning, you have like a whole day ahead of you.
Right.
And that's a real bummer. But I do think Yeah, there are good things. I try to be aware, as it is with when you run a channel too, you get people who sponsors, things like that. And I try to suss them out a little bit and be like, hey, I know you're selling like ground up deer penis. Like, I get that some Native American tribe did this.
Yeah. Is it the same tribe that had 54 genders, as they try and argue?
Yeah, right.
Which doesn't exist.
Spirit gender.
Yeah.
So it is something I'm constantly aware of, because when you have an audience, you got to protect them. You can't just say, hey, this is great, I'm going to sell this thing to you.
Well, this is interesting too, because I want to get into why you kind of got into this space. With my background, started acting when I was a teenager and doing stand-up that in my later teens. How someone kind of gets into the space from your walk in life.
Yeah.
But with sponsors, that is a consistent issue. I'm sure you see this, right? Where these companies pop up, they're chop shops. They pop up where they're a marketing company that happens to create a product so they can sell it on shows.
Correct.
On podcasts.
Yeah.
And they'll approach you, and they'll often offer a lot of money because they've just run some numbers, they've looked at the algorithms, and the product is trash.
Or these are also usually the companies that say, you have to tell everyone you take it, and tell everyone that I have a hard line in the sand. Like, I will promote a product, but I won't say I take it if I don't take it.
Yeah.
And they'll say, I've had people say like, oh, well, what you really got to do is like say, oh, I just stumbled across this crazy thing, and this, like, I don't do that, because first of all, when it's like health supplements, I'm like, my viewers are like, they're like, come on, player. But then like, in general, I'm like,
I would imagine if it's covered in cheese.
If it's cheese or fried, they're going to say, okay.
Wisconsin, you got it.
I believe this guy. I believe that he consumes this, or some sort of liquor or beer. But usually it's the health space I'm very cautious about.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. And it's especially because it's not regulated.
Right.
We've been pretty fortunate because, we're largely supported by Mug Club. We don't run that many sponsors.
Right.
Early on, I just didn't want to be beholden to it. So every sponsor that we've used is either someone who I reached out to, was a product that I happened to use, or something that I thought was useful.
Those are the best.
Yeah.
And I always like selling those. Like,
right.
I'm not going to name drop anybody, but it's like, when you have, product they like, it's great. It doesn't feel like an ad. It's like, I take this stuff, or I use this product, or so it's like, it doesn't feel slimy. It doesn't feel like you're selling something. You're just being totally honest.
Well, if you're not providing, this is my point of view, if you're not providing a value added to the person watching or listening right now, you're effectively selling them as a commodity.
Yes,
and
right.
Like, for example, I have the drug test to prove it. I used CB Distillery after my surgery because they could only write 7 days of pain prescriptions. And when you do like a whole life insurance test and you have to do a blood work, they're like, oh yeah, what's this? Because there's THC when it's even 0.3%. And I had the QR code or the lab certificate.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, okay, well that makes sense. So I have literally the drug test to prove that I used it, or Walther, we reached out to them. But if I'm just going, hey, I want to make some money and I know this is useless. This happened to me one time. I sold clothes to a guy. I worked at the French-Canadian version of Nordstrom's called Les Ailes. And they had a promotion for a clothing company. I shouldn't say what it is, Decker. And
I shouldn't say this, but.
And they were like, if the person who sells the most Decker clothing this month gets, I don't know, some kind of a prize.
Yeah, spiff or whatever, yeah.
And I sold it. There was this guy who came in with his mom who obviously didn't know how to dress. And I sold him this god-awful Eurotrash clothing. And I did it one time.
Yeah. I
said, I'm never going to do it again because I'm not doing my job. And then I was promptly fired, as I should have been.
Yeah,
but
right.
It's a horrible feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few sponsors too come through and, selling land in Scotland kind of stuff, or hypothetical
kind of stuff. That seems oddly specific.
It could be anybody.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, or I've gotten more careful through the years now, and that's the responsibility that you have as the gatekeeper, because just like they always say, if the product is free, you're the product. In a way that our viewers are our products, but I think creators like you and myself and many others, we're more protective. Not everyone's like that. Everyone's just like, whatever, I'll take the money, I'll take the ad money. It's the same reason I don't do gambling ads. No disrespect to people that do. I have an addictive personality, so I don't want to people. I don't want to do gambling ads, that kind of stuff.
Did you Did you ever do Quip toothbrush?
No.
Oh, okay, thank God. Because they did it where they were doing this whole thing with conservatives, right? And then they do a whole with their rainbow Quip toothbrush.
Oh.
I was like, oh, thank God I never actually sold Quip toothbrush.
I remember I was pre-Freedom phones. Did you do Freedom phones, Steven?
No, I didn't do them.
Oh,
no, I didn't do them.
Yeah.
Is that the one where it was like they used Sprint towers, but you were actually put into a queue behind Sprint, but it was more expensive?
It was a total, yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean, it collapsed very quickly. There were a lot of people going to a lot of shows.
Yeah, and then they go after you, right? And they go, "Why do you hate America? Why do you hate freedom if you don't want to sell?" It's like, well, I just don't want to sell this product.
Yeah, I have Primeco. I'm old enough to remember Primeco. It's like I don't need to sell. Plus, I'm also, if my viewers will know this, I'm a big don't buy stuff to own the libs.
Right.
Because it's crap. It doesn't actually do anything except for enrich people who are grifting off of conservatives.
Right.
And so that kind of stuff is always a red flag for me. I'm like, Freedom Phone, okay, well, does it have better service? Is it faster? Is it? Well, no, it's just America. Okay, well, no, I'm not. That's
It's got to be at least equivalent, where you're
at
saying
minimum,
yeah,
and similarly priced.
yes,
And have something, not like triggered SJW blend or something like that. I don't like doing that.
it was too dark a roast.
It really was.
I
Very, very bold though.
I remember there was a big one that did bed sheets, and I won't say
Bed
the name.
sheets were big.
I won't
I
say the
remember
name
that.
of the bed
Yeah,
sheets.
yeah.
But several U.S. presidents used them. So I've
Several.
heard.
Yeah.
And I tried them. I said, "Oh, so you're selling hospital sheets?"
Oh, they weren't even like high thread count?
No.
Oh.
No, it felt very much like the butcher paper at the doctor's office, and I just thought, this is what you do?
I can't, yeah, because you can only, yeah, I'm a hard pass on that.
Yeah.
I'll say send it to me. Like I had somebody who sent me, now this is a fine company. It was a sauna sleeping bag
Oh yeah,
with
yeah.
like IR, very expensive product. And I said, this is never going to sell to my viewers. And he's like, well, just send it. So it's like $400. The whole thing is you have to like lay on the floor, put it, zip yourself up in it. I'm like, there is no way anyone buys it. He's like, I'll just run the ad. I'm like, okay. Ran the ad, nobody bought it.
Yep.
You know, I was like, you kind of know what's going to work with your audience too, and like
I thought this was gonna have a happy ending.
it was.
like-
I stayed in the sauna bag. It was fun.
Oh, so okay, well, that's a good.
But when you're
Were you nibbling on cheese?
yeah, well, it's you put a little cheese in there for dipping sauce. But like being as tall as I am,
Yeah.
I didn't even fit in it. So I'm like, oh, cool, I can roast my groin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, some UFC fighters have used those to cut weight, because they don't necessarily.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, saunas, but then you sweat a little more sometimes with the infrared. So there was one time a fighter who.
And you don't. Yeah, you lose more, but it's not as obvious.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's one thing you have to kind of calibrate. You don't have any extra ones, do you?
I do.
So I'll
send it to you.
There you go. You'll give them a plug, and I'll be doing the show from my sauna bag.
I love it. Yeah, I think we talked about it. I have a infrared sauna at home. I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that is worth it. It's again overblown.
Yeah,
We're
it's
like
not, doesn't cure everything. Yeah.
Well, actually, there's a guy out there who does a podcast, and he said that an infrared sauna. So I don't even know if we need this paper. We're just going.
Yeah.
It's a little inside baseball here. Again, TheQuartering. Best place is X or Rumble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to go back to that. But there's a guy who said, the sauna is actually proven to increase your growth hormone and testosterone by 400 or 600%. And my friend Chael Sonnen, is a fighter in the UFC, and he has a relatively popular podcast. He said, look, if this was true, he said, now you can't through steroids get your testosterone at 600%. He said, and I know because I was trying and I got caught.
Yeah.
He goes, but if you were looking for a job with the New York Yankees and you said I could increase your players' testosterone by 600%, they would fire the other coaches. They wouldn't even need to practice, and they would give you $1 million.
Oh yeah.
It's
all
not
day.
possible.
Yeah.
But
right.
it's a headline, it's a thumbnail, and then people take it to the bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of scary, isn't it? Because I think you and I have both benefited from circumventing gatekeepers, right? But there also is a challenge with, I don't know if you see some people where the truth doesn't matter at all, and it's just collecting cash.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you think that gets balanced going forward?
Well, I think you can only burn people's trust so many times. I mean, early on, even, I would do a lot of ads on my channel, and then I would start to see the people in the comments like, oh, it's too many ads. I unsubscribed from him years ago. He did too many ads, this, that, and the other thing. And then if you get caught up, obviously, the very real part of it is, you get caught up selling something, and then your viewers don't blame the company; they blame you. And so people were pretty pissed off at me that they didn't actually own land in Scotland.
Really?
And I immediately came out. I was like, hey, if I thought it was just like a meme gift or whatever.
I thought it was a novelty gift, honestly.
Yeah, nobody. What I basically said was, it became a thing. Someone did like an exposed video, and then everyone's like emailing me, calling me a scammer. I'm like, nobody in my audience actually thinks they're a lord.
Right.
It's like a goofball gift that you buy for whatever dollars,
Yeah.
But had that not have been, had I sold it dishonestly, I sold it as a gift, as a meme. Had I sold it dishonestly, you lose your credibility and people will call you sellout and they'll just stop watching. I think it kind of fixes itself.
Well, I think I agree with you mostly, but I disagree in one way, in the sense that you're one of the few people who will get into this idea of preparation, where you actually do like a show and you prepare, right? And you have segments and you have assets that you have ready. So for something that people tune into a scheduled viewing, yes, you lose their trust. But for people, there are businesses out there where they just go, we're just going to use the algorithm for a reel and a 5-second view, where no one's actually investing any trust. It's just, this popped up in my feed and this is shareable. You can still make a lot of money that way and keep burning the trust bridge over and over, and no one cares.
Yeah, this is true of like Instagram and TikTok, where they're already short form and they're set up. I think this is the way that X is going to go too. They're going to turn into marketplaces, because that's really a great way to make money for them, which I'm not against. But you're right. There's a lot of, kind of scummy products out there. I think you just have to hope that people have some level of integrity. I've always said, for example, I'll do ads for mobile games. People hate it. But because of the way that the YouTube algorithm has changed, in the way that when you're conservative or even perceived conservative, your viewers kind of know. I found that when I did ads, my viewers were like, here's another ad from some whatever mobile game. But everyone always like, dude, who cares? People would just say, hey, they get demonetized all the time. They get suppressed all the time. They got to eat. So there was really a change around the adpocalypse, thanks to somebody in this room.
I apologize. That wasn't my intent.
There was a change around them where viewers became more accepting of ads in our space, not necessarily in the wider space. I think it's interesting when somebody like Mr. Beast does an ad read, and I'm like, you get 200 million views a video. Do you really need an ad read? But it is what it is. They enjoy it as long as it fits. By the way, the best key for good ads is ones that actually target your customers. Right. If it's a weirdo, crappy product then your customers get mad.
Well, the problem though with YouTube,
your viewers,
is YouTube doesn't allow you to really target conservatives effectively, right? No. Because they just don't allow your product to be placed in there. Generally speaking,
they used to let you target per channel.
Right.
Like when I would try to sell my stuff, I used to pick I'd run until you got demonetized, but I'd run my coffee ads on conservative channels, and I would even do a custom pre-roll. Hey, before you watch a Steven Crowder video, blah 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 blah. Yeah. I had 50 different ads, and then they even removed that. Now you can't even do that. I can't even say I want to target conservatives. I just have to buy all the crap.
So you're a more savvy business person than I am, because if I get an idea like that, so I use the same, but I did it out of spite. So I targeted
spite is a powerful thing.
I targeted liberal channels. I won't say who, where I had done parodies of them or I was critiquing them, and I would run my video as a pre-roll ad before their videos.
I love that.
And but I didn't stand to make any money. It's just a small satisfaction of knowing that someone in their studios was going,
yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I do videos like roasting Disney or something, and then people will be like, Disney bought an ad on your video, or Disney, made fun of Captain Marvel. I saw a Captain Marvel ad in your video. That's always funny to me too. So
well, it is though. It is tough though sometimes, because and you're obviously you do some different content from I do. For example, you lean into drama.
I know you avoid it.
I'm just I just want to do the show. But I also understand that there's value in it. But there is one thing that I think we share in common. You do care about the truth. You know what I mean? Even if you don't like someone, you're not just going to lie because you don't like the person.
Yeah.
And I know that about you. And even if you don't like Jeremy, I know this about him. It is tough to compete with the lie with the truth. An example that I used recently was where a bunch of people were sending me this tweet that went out saying 1.2 million new registered voters in Texas in 2024 with no ID. Now, the real
saw
number
that,
was about 60,000.
Yeah.
And we were vindicated because all the secretaries of state came out and said, yeah, that's not true. Let us explain to you. And a lot of them were Republicans too. But I had so many people sending it to me, and we did a whole segment on this, like, no, Arizona's not 200,000,
Yeah.
Texas is not, whatever it was, 1.2 million. The problem is you do it, it's right, you know it's right, but the lie gets shared faster because people go, yeah, but this shocks people.
Yeah.
When the truth is shocking enough, no one should be voting or registering without ID. But when you lie about the number, it discredits the conservative movement as a whole.
Yeah, and there's also, X has turned into a more negative space, I think, for conservative clickbait. I saw a video this morning where it was like, John Mellencamp has Biden meltdown and gets kicked off stage. I looked for half an hour to find he did have a meltdown, and he did quit the show. But there was no mention of Biden. I couldn't find a longer video that had anything about Biden.
Right.
But like a lot of people were like incentivized on Twitter. So like I saw that and I'm like, I'm going to cover this. And I'm like, well, wait, I can't find.
Right.
Maybe he did rant about Biden, but there's not a single clip about it. So I'm like, I can't cover this story. I guess I'll just cover this biological female that boxed a biological male and got knocked out in 21 seconds.
That's fun too.
That was a lot of fun.
Be extra fun if they box John Cougar Mellencamp, because I hate him. Not actually, as a Christian, it's wrong to hate, but you know what I mean? I hate him.
Yeah, Mellencamp is, he has TDS terminally. For me, if I go to a movie or a concert, I really don't give a damn about their personal politics, and I'm not there to be preached at.
Right.
And that's essentially, I think somebody in the crowd is like, just play some music or something like that, and he just completely melted down.
Yeah.
So if he was talking about Biden or Trump or something like that, I would be angry too. I'd be like, oh my God, like.
Yeah, I don't care so much if they're, well, first off, I separate the art from the artist unless it gets to a certain point where it's so egregious that you have now transformed your art into propaganda.
Yeah.
For me, I'm more so bothered by complete inauthenticity. So like Bruce Springsteen is an example.
Yeah.
He goes out talking about Santa Claus, how been good this, yeah. You can find early interviews of him, and he's talking like this. He sounds like Ralph Macchio. Mm-hmm. It's totally fraudulent, and that bothers me.
Mark Cuban's another guy.
Another guy like that. And you have some people on the right who do that, where it's like, now I'm America and cigars and whatever it is, and you're going like, yeah, but I know that's not, I'd rather you just be honest about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And most people, if you're honest, are somewhere on the spectrum of reasonable. Some people are insane. Speaking of insane, though, I did want to ask you, how did you get into the YouTube space? Because for me, it was having doors slammed, having worked in Hollywood, saying, you know what, I'm going to try this on my own because of my views. But I always wondered why in our kind of generation, because now every kid wants to be a YouTuber. They see it as network television.
It's one of the number one jobs in high schools now.
Right.
YouTuber, TikToker. Well, my story is pretty interesting. So I had I have a master's degree in marketing. I worked for a marketing agency. Dream job. So we were what is called an internet marketing incubator. So essentially, it was a bunch of marketing people. Like you have internal marketing people probably, right?
We have people who help me, like they handle social, but we haven't hired like an outside firm, which we probably should at some point.
Probably. So we were a marketing agency, and I'll keep it somewhat short. So I get my master's degree. I'm working there. I'm making pretty good money. At 23, I was making about $200,000 a year, $250,000 a year. And I thought, wow, that's all the money I'm ever going to need. This is great. Well, things change in the space. Google changes, everything. There's a market shift. Essentially, we used to represent big clients like Dish Network and other stuff. So by the way, during the adpocalypse, I was representing large Fortune 500 companies that just cut off spending altogether because Vox said their ad showed on a neo-Nazi website or something. The way that these huge companies reacted to the adpocalypse was so wild because I was on the marketing side. It disillusioned me completely. So I started my own marketing agency, but started making computer repair videos. That was my first channel, computer repair videos. And it was like, just to understand SEO, organic search results. And I started making videos and they started getting popular.
Remember when that was a thing?
Yeah, that's no longer a thing either, right? It's just paid search only now. Used to be able to rank. So we had an agency that sold SEO. Google killed SEO, so the agency struggled. And I had built this little YouTube channel of repairing computers. Then I sold little kits on how, you could buy this. There's all the tools you ever need to fix your computer. And then so I realized like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like every time I'd sell one, I had a little like ka-ching thing that would went on my phone, and it'd be like, yes, $90.
Nice.
And so I got the bug of like internet marketing, and then YouTube was always just this thing, like this, just kind of this fun thing I did. And then I got canceled because I had a YouTube channel covering a game I loved, Magic the Gathering. It's a card game. It's like chess plus math plus nerd stuff.
No, I'm aware of the gay stuff.
Okay. Yes. That was in my college era. But I had played the game since 1993, and I had started to see this culture war seep into the game, where they were essentially very negative about men and say men gatekeeping. And so I would start making videos saying like, I don't know what you're talking about. I play in these local game shops. When a girl walks in, I'm not gonna. I always with that. I want to sing the song, but if a girl walks in the game shop, the guys in there would like be tripping over themselves to be nice to her.
Yeah,
it was like 75 guys in it on a Saturday, and if one girl came in there, she was a goddess. You know, like just treated like.
Right.
And so this. All of a sudden, they start writing these articles like men are gross or gatekeeping women from the game. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've seen guys stab each other to like help teach a girl how to play. This is crazy. So anyway, the people that make the game, Wizards of the Coast, that one of their high up employees, I had a YouTube channel at the time where I talked about stuff. They send me a card to spoil. It's a big deal because when new sets come out, it's like free marketing. It's like access journalism. So like I got to say, hey, this is a new card that's coming out that no one else knew about. Some marketing intern there didn't know that they hated me, apparently.
Yeah.
Sent it to me. I upload the video. They're like high up at the company, post on Reddit that like, this was a huge mistake. He's a misogynist, piece of garbage, blah, 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 blah. Then the war began. Then I go to the world's biggest gaming convention, Gen Con. I forget the year exactly. And a Antifa guy attacked me. Like I was just sitting at the bar, 2:00 in the morning, talking with some viewers from my channel, and all I hear in the background is, "Are you Jeremy?" Well, people have been coming up to me because the gaming community knew me.
Right.
People have been coming up to me all day, like, "Are you Jeremy from Unsleeved Media or MTG headquarters?" Yeah. They're always fans. Always were fans. I turn around and he just starts punching me like I'm crazed maniac, like a hero from behind. And so then really TheQuartering was born. I was like, oh, these people are psychotic.
Had he seen the size of you, or were you sitting down?
He was blackout drunk. He was not a small guy, but he was so crazy that like I got him off me, and then I went inside the bar because I'm like, can someone call the cops? And he punched through the window.
Really?
Like he was a total lunatic. And I was like, okay, well, I had like a small group of guys with me, so I wasn't like too concerned about it. But at that time, I didn't know how to fight until now I know a little more about, self-defense and things like that. But it was scary. It was weird. And then as a thank you for that, I got banned. So they banned me from the event that I had flown down to. And
did they ban him?
Yes, they did ban him.
So like a zero tolerance policy in high school.
Yeah, right. Although I threw no punches, I just got punched.
Yeah.
And so then, so I got banned, and then TheQuartering was really born. And then I was like, okay, I'm all in on this culture war thing. And
well, they always say conservatives are just liberals who are punched in the face by life or reality, and you were
that's true,
quite literally,
yeah,
or maybe in your back, because unless he was tall enough, he wouldn't be able to.
They took my favorite game from me. I'd been playing it since I was 1993. Since I had massive collections, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cards. Banned me from the game eventually. All these things were kind of subsequent because then I went to war with them, and perhaps I said some things, and I'm not without guilt.
One does.
Yeah, I was not without guilt, but I was young, less refined. So then that's how I started with TheQuartering. I was like, hey, people are saying all this bad stuff about men, and nobody's defending them.
Yeah.
This was like 2015, 2016, where it was like toxic masculinity, men are bad. And then, so that's kind of how that was born.
And it existed beneath the surface, by the way, in higher education and in media for a long time. It's just that now they were flat out saying it.
Yeah.
In every single sitcom and in every single commercial, men are the asshole.
The perfect example, right? Homer Simpson.
Yep.
He's portrayed as a buffoon, but he's actually like a based, awesome dad. Yeah. Like who would do anything for Lisa. There's many like examples of how he's actually a great dad. The first episode, the Christmas episode, where he does the Santa work to save Christmas, and then you went from a guy who had some redeeming dad qualities to Peter Griffin, who is just basically a piece of garbage.
Yeah, complete loser.
Yeah.
Nick DiPaolino who's on Mug Club, and you guys can tune into him 5 p.m. Eastern here on Mug Club. This is in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he had a great bit to give you an idea, and I talked to him about it. It was to date it. It was a commercial for AOL Online. And he goes, this
50
commercial,
free hours.
Yeah. He goes, commercial. We're always. He goes, this is in the early '90s, mid '90s. He goes, I don't know, maybe it was mid '90s, but he has stuff on this in the early '90s. He goes, it's just the feminist movement sticking their mustachioed faces into. That's all it's about. AOL Online, where they say, so easy, my dad can use it. You mean the guy who bought the computer?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I just remember there's no fat on that joke.
Yeah.
And he's always been that guy. Yeah. And he's lost a lot of opportunities in this industry. I mean, the guy could have retired very, very young if he would have played ball a little bit. Speaking of sponsors, by the way, you know what? We don't usually do this. I don't know what's about to come up, but I think we might get a refill here. So here's some kind of a sketch or sponsorship that my producers will pick. Be right back.
Welcome back to Fortune Wheel. I'm Josh Firestein, and during the break, I applied for a job at Home Depot. Love this job. Now, for those of you just joining us, our contestants today are totally not an IRS agent, renowned musician Kenny G, and Louder with Crowder correspondent Thomas Finnegan. Now, we're just about finished with puzzle number 3. Totally not IRS agent, it's your turn. Reminder, the category is something you might need help with.
I'm gonna spin, Josh.
I don't care.
Nice. Let me get an R.
R. Do we have any R's? R's on the board. R's. 1 R. All right. Is anybody gonna get the? Oh, that's right. Vanna quit. She's living her best life at Home Depot. Okay. Well, totally not IRS agent. It's still your turn. What's it gonna be?
Spin again, Josh.
All right. Oh, bankrupt! Just like that, you're broke as a joke again. How does it feel, you piece of shit? Maybe I should send some people to your house, huh? All right, Kenny G, you're up.
I'd like to solve, Josh.
Finally, we can get out of here and go home. I've got a George Foreman and a grilled cheese with my name on it.
Sax Revolution.
Sax? No, Kenny G. Sax Revolution? Why would you think that Sorry. That was a good answer. Sorry. Finnegan, you're up next. What's it gonna be? You wanna spin? Solve?
Hi, Josh. I'd like to solve, Josh.
Okay.
Tax resolution.
Tax resolution, that's right!
I knew that because Tax Network USA helped me a lot. They've helped thousands of Americans with their taxes, their bookkeeping needs, and they can help you find tax resolutions that work for you.
That's right, they can do all that for you. I don't want to know what you needed that for, but I'm sure it was for something you can't legally talk about. So if you need help with your taxes, visit TNUSA/Crowder today and get your free consultation. We'll be right back with our bonus round. Don't miss it. We got Thomas Finnegan coming up. Kenny G, play us out, baby.
Don't let the IRS take advantage of you. Contact Tax Network USA for immediate relief and expert guidance. You can call 1-800-245-6000 or visit tnusa.com/Crowder.
Back, I have no idea what you just saw with
It's probably
TheQuartering.
good. It's probably good.
It was passable.
Yeah.
Of course, you can watch Jeremy here, TheQuartering, on Rumble, 5:30 Eastern, and you can follow him on X. Even though you just said it's probably going to become a marketplace, but you know what? We'll plug it anyway.
Yeah.
So, have you been fully demonetized on YouTube?
No, I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah.
All right. So you've been. This is actually good. Out of choice, kind of migrating people toward Rumble.
Yeah. It's been the slow boil, you know. It's easier to move everyone if you get demonetized, for example, because people are more motivated. Mm-hmm. But I've been moving over a few thousand people a month, and obviously as Rumble improves, it's not the perfect product. It's improving. But as more people come, more people improve, or the platform improves, the app improves, people are more and more excited to do it. I think obviously election season is going to be massive for Rumble, and I think more creators in our space need to stop being
just
Yes, and do it.
yeah.
There were a lot of people that were fine to let the API just bring their content over.
Right.
But Google disabled that. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
So you have to upload your video there manually, which takes a whole 10 freaking seconds, you know, and then a bunch of people who claim to be free speech and anti-censorship people haven't done it. So
Well,
it's
I
kinda
can't
disappointing.
I can't tell you how many people have called me behind the scenes saying, "Hey, I've had a bunch of videos demonetized. I'm afraid the hammer's going to drop." I said, "Well, I hope you have a contingency plan." And I'll tell them about Rumble, or if they want to do things with X. I just obviously Rumble is the one I believe in because of how they've treated us, and they were the first place where they actually had the live streaming available. And Chris has flipped the bird. Chris Pavlovsky, the CEO, shout out to him, has flipped the bird to governments where he has not caved on anything. And then they call me, these same creators, and they're like, "It happened." And I go, "Well, you're gonna have a much harder time now because it's not the demonetizing. It's now people don't see your content."
Yeah.
That's the issue.
I have a similar issue where people say, "Can you give me a deal with Rumble?" I'm like, well, I don't have that power, but I also see you haven't been uploading your videos to Rumble.
Right.
So if I go to the CEO of the company and I say, this guy wants money, he doesn't use your platform,
right.
How do you think that's going to go? Like the reason I got it, because I'm not as large as a lot of other people that did, is because I had been actively using it since I already had 100,000 subscribers on Rumble before I ever had a Rumble deal, maybe more than that. So when I made the pitch, it was like, hey, I support your platform, and now give me money, please. Yes, exactly. I support your platform.
But also with in a contract, hopefully, or an agreement that's something you're both happy with. Like that's the thing too, is I will say this, like they are on board. It's not just lip service. When you flip the bird to the French government, to Brazil, you say, we are not removing these creators just because you ask us to. I mean, these are governments. When you consider that a lot of people in our conservative space, they'll still tell their own people. And of course, look, if it's your network, you can tell people to say whatever you want, but they say, we are a platform. It's not our job to censor. And then you have so many people.
Some platforms do, Stephen.
Yes. Wait, what?
Some platforms have lines of things that their people can publish on their platforms.
Yes, of course. Wait, why are you being so cryptic? You mean YouTube? Let's just forget about it. Let's go back to discussing cheese. Do you think that Wisconsin has better cheese than Vermont?
Nobody ever talks about Vermont cheese, so there's your answer.
So you can't answer because you don't know.
Yeah, but that's like saying, have you ever eaten a pile of cow shit? How would you know it's not bad?
I won't let you besmirch the good people of Vermont.
I love Vermont.
Okay.
Some of the best people on the planet I know are from Vermont.
And Bernie Sanders. So
how many houses? 3?
Yeah.
I actually have never had. Is Vermont cheese a thing?
It's a big. I think is Wisconsin known as the cheese state?
Actually, I think we lost that to California, or the dairy state. We lost to California. I think.
Yeah, because I think Vermont is the cheese. Is it the cheese state or the dairy state? I don't know. They're big on their cheese.
Hey, Vermont viewers, I got a PO box. Dry ice. I'll take some cheese. I'm not like that.
No, it's okay. We both have an axe to grind because Vermont claims their maple syrup is the best, and they can't hold a candle to Canada. So
Vermont maple syrup is okay.
It's passable. Yeah. I mean, I'll accept it in a pinch, but I'll feel bad about myself. I'll feel shame. Yeah. So you mentioned this too, and I wanted to talk about this because you're pretty transparent with your audience, and you just talked about sort of this toxic masculinity, and this was kind of what ushered you into your channel and kind of your initial audience. And I know you've talked about this now a lot, discussing sort of men's mental health is something that you've discussed quite a bit, and also I think having at least a balanced perspective on this sort of red pill movement and recognizing, toxic feminism, for lack of a better term, where maybe there are people who identify the right problems, but the wrong solutions. And I see that happening in the space. That's something you touch on quite a bit.
It's important to me because as a proud lover of men, I care about their future.
That will be clipped.
I know. So you know. I purposely worded it in that manner.
Okay, perfect.
I love men.
Yeah.
Deeply.
Yes.
Platonically. But here's the thing. 95% of my viewership is men. I have a precious few lady viewers, and I love them deeply as well. But I see the comments. I'm not every creator out there does that. I read the comments. I read the live chat. I see what you say to me on Twitter. And over the past 6-7 years, what I've noticed is a lot of anger. And that manifests itself in a lot of different ways. And sometimes the target is warranted. Sometimes the target is not warranted. Sometimes it's because of their own actions. Sometimes it's because of actions done to them. But what I feel like, as you mentioned, is that it's all getting lumped together. Right. I'm single, I'm 35. It's because hoe's bad. Like, or I knew a friend who went through a bad divorce, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to go back through that. And as the eternal optimist that I am, I try to get people to I acknowledge that, yeah, sometimes things suck, and maybe you're going through a bad breakup, or your friend, or whatever the case is.
Or you got tricked by a two-bit hoe.
You got tricked by a...
it happens.
It happens, yes. 304 is the term the kids are using for hoes now.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's if you turn it upside
Looks
down
like
on a calculator.
hoe, I think. Yeah.
See, I used to do it, but I used to spell boobs.
I went 8008735, which was boobless.
Yeah. Oh, well, that
Yeah.
was mean. You shouldn't make jokes about people who have mastectomies, but go on.
Well, I am also I have a lot of trans pride. So
It's perfect.
So I'm stuck in this place where a lot of my viewers consume similar content that I think at face value, just like Jerry Springer, is hilarious and fun and entertaining. Everybody loves a dumb person getting dunked on. It's just great entertainment. Jerry Springer proved it, Maury Povich. I mean, I don't ever want to know if all Maury Povich's paternity tests were real or not, because they were always entertaining.
Right.
But I worry that the amount of content that is pushing blame or pushing responsibility off, that isn't to say that the legal system, like I used to speak at men's rights conferences, and there used to be an aspect of the men's rights movement that would talk about divorce court. I think I forget her name, but the Red Pill documentary.
Cassie J.
Yeah. Awesome.
She was a
Loved
lovely
it.
lady, yeah.
Yeah, loved it. Pointed out, look, domestic shelters for men basically don't exist.
Right.
Even though men do suffer domestic abuse.
Far more often.
And if they report it, they're treated like the cops make fun of you, or the cops don't take it seriously. Men are at a major legal disadvantage in terms of divorce court, or in an argument. Your woman calls the police on you in an argument, you don't touch her, cops show up, you're probably going to jail.
Right.
And we all know somebody like that. I had a friend of mine going through divorce. Basically, if he had an argument with his wife, he had to leave the house because he just did not. He couldn't leave an opening.
Well, I remember a good example of that was Chuck Liddell had some kind of a domestic dispute, and she was going nuts and was hitting him.
Yeah.
And I think he called not the police to have her. I don't think he charged her. I don't remember the story, but it was basically because she was being self-destructive and to help her.
Yeah.
Or she called the cops and he said, no, I don't want to. But I remember it came out later. Everyone assumed fighter. Mohawk,
Yeah. Yep.
And she was wailing on him, and but the headlines had already been written at that point.
Well, Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, too, right? Johnny had bodyguards in the house for some reason, I would imagine. And again, I don't ever want to dismiss the fact that bad people exist, or that the legal system is stacked against men, because it is. But I do want to try and grab people a little bit before they get to the point, because I mentioned I have friends in their 30s, good paying jobs in the trades. They make, 6 figures, no debt. They fish on the weekends. They have their hobbies, and they've completely given up on finding a woman,
right,
or a man. And it breaks my heart. I'm like, why? I'm happy. It's okay.
Yeah.
And these are guys that just, they had a bad breakup 10 years ago and they checked out. And they also consume a lot of content, and they say, Jeremy, you don't know what it's like dating out there. They're all whores and they're all this and that. That's not true. Get off the dating apps. Go join a club, join a sport, or join a club that requires more than one person. Join a bar volleyball league where you're going to have 15
What's a bar volleyball league?
Well, I've just volleyball at the bar. It's a super popular in Wisconsin.
Oh, really? Sorry, I thought it was like a legal thing. They pass the bar and they play volleyball.
Yeah. Legal lawyer volleyball.
By the way, Half Asian Bill, we both know him. He's a surprise, fantastic at ping pong. We have that ping pong table.
I'm not shocked to hear that.
Yeah. Except he got pissed when Gerald smoked him. But I'll tell you that story off air.
He's so short and compact, though. He's right at the table height.
Oh, yeah.
He's this.
To know Bill is to love him.
Yeah. So my passion is right now to try and just prevent that. Too many men have checked out.
Yeah.
And yes, there are predatory women out there. But I think I'm all over the place, I'm sorry. But you look at
it's a tough subject, and I agree with you. It's like people who just go hose this. I agree. I think there is a problem that obviously you identified at one point in time, and now people have split off where the solution has kind of become clickbait.
Yes, exactly. I just wish that some of these channels that you can be entertaining, like even at the end of The Price is Right, they say to spay or neuter your dogs.
Right.
Like, give me something, not just hose bad all the time.
And Bob Barker loved the hose. He was
banging
all of them.
Notorious homemonger.
I had no idea until Pops Crowder on the show. He was like, "Didn't you know that?" I'm like, "Bob Barker?"
Yeah.
He's like, "I
crushed.
probably didn't want to."
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I found that out relatively recently.
That is a shocking but also awesome fact.
Yeah.
But so for me, it's like I want to be able to try and change my message up a little bit and explain to men that, like, go out and join, like, dating apps are fine, but they commodify relationships. They provide too many options, and they create a scenario, I believe, where both men and women are unwilling to work through even the smallest obstacle because there's a new option one swipe away. So you're like, this person has a mole I didn't expect. Or, I mean, that's obviously extremely superficial.
Don't do that in confidence, but sure.
Yeah, but you had mentioned your mole, so it came up. Yeah, it popped into my head. But so to me, that's what I'm passionate about, is trying to prevent people from. You can watch the dunking on hose stuff,
right,
and it's funny, but just also know that those same people that are dunking on those hoses are signing up for their OnlyFans accounts too.
That does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, for example, we did have Fit and Fresh on the show one time, and they were identifying some of the problems. And whenever someone is here, even if I disagree, it's my job to be, a decent host, because I've invited them either onto my show or Space. And they were talking about, like, look, to get over it, I think they were offering some advice, sleep with a bunch of women. I said, well, hold on a second. The solution is not to become what it is that would be an eliminating factor in a woman. Like, men and women are different. Well, that is true, but that's not helping you find the right kind of woman. And I think
it's creating more of the women you say are bad, by the way. Too.
Yeah, and I guess in their mindset, it's like, well, a good woman would pass this kind of litmus test. But it's like, yeah, but it's not your job to do that. That just makes the person doing it. You're harming yourself ultimately. Yeah. I do think, and seeing this a lot, because I do have a lot of young males who watch. I have a surprising amount of women who particularly show up, like, at the stand-up shows and the live shows.
You do have a lot of female fans. Like, I see them, like, in my chat. Like,
half are lesbians. Which is very surprising.
Love
but,
big fan of lesbians.
They're a huge fan of lesbians, especially in the movies.
Yeah, right. They've done some fine cinema.
But I think it's, you do, and it's something close to 40% of young men now will never get married.
That is so sad.
It is to me too. And
it's like a disaster. It's a national emergency.
It really is. And as someone who believes that marriage and that the nuclear family is foundational, right? Before you have federal governance, state governance, you need to have self-governance, and that's a nuclear family, and that's why the left attacks it. I believe that marriage is a bedrock, it's foundational. And it's hard for me with the current system, and I spoke with Jordan Peterson about this. It's hard for me to recommend it to a young man who's successful, who has a lot to bring to the table, without, for example, some kind of a prenuptial agreement, because at any point the legal system exists where it's like giving one person nukes, right? And giving the other person, and this could be whether it's a man or woman, but it really is kind of tilted against the primary provider. Mm-hmm. They go, look, I just don't know. Like, I have people, they'll say, yeah, I've saved up 6 figures, I've worked, I worked 3 jobs, didn't take on any student debt, and I think that I love this woman, but the truth is at any point she can change her mind, and they're afraid. And the problem does lie with, in my opinion, the no-fault divorce. A lot of people don't realize this. No-fault divorce, started with Dr. Kinsey, the guy who believed that everyone was a little bit gay, and Hugh Hefner. Because before that, there was either cheating, in which case you were punished, physical abuse, in which case you were punished, or if there was no cheating or abuse, abandonment, meaning you can't just renege on a contract. Yeah. So it was never the idea that you could just sleep with your secretary and walk off. Kinsey and Hefner were saying that men actually are promiscuous animals. They should not be punished for sleeping with multiple women. So I said, let's have no-fault divorce, thinking it would result in a man being able to bang his secretary and walk off. And instead it morphed into, actually now anyone can walk at any point.
Well, in the percentage, which is debatable, you see this number thrown out there, which I believe is high and debunked. It has been debunked, but it is not insignificant. There is a high percentage of divorces that are, I won't use say the number, because I see it, a lot of people say 80% of divorces are initiated by women. It's not 80%, but it is high.
It's close to 70, and it's
Yeah.
over 80 if both members of the couple are college educated.
Okay, so there's that's the additional information.
Yes.
So I'm not going to deny that, but I will say to people that tout that is like, well, let's look. I mean, are all 80% of these women just whores that want to take the guy's money? No, there's probably a reason that they're getting divorced.
Well, that is, but infidelity and abuse are not even among the top 5 listed.
I
think
buy that.
The
Yeah,
number
I buy
one was
that.
like
Yeah.
lack of, he's no longer communicating or feeling like, they aren't
Irrevocable
as invested
differences is probably or what is it?
irreconcilable differences, but
Yeah.
no one files that anymore because that's.
Oh, is that okay?
It's just, because what ends up happening is you're incentivized by $1 billion industry of
Divorce.
cite some kind of
Yeah.
abuse and then you get more, right?
Yeah.
And so men are afraid of that, and it's a legitimate fear. I mean, let's say it's 60%, which we would both is low.
Yeah.
But for a young man who has maybe taken on a huge burden, and by the way, I see this with people who are good men who are afraid of it. I think there needs to be we need to look at those laws and those systems and then say, look, everyone needs to be on equal footing, rebalance the roles that we saw with feminism before we try and solve the problem. And then, yes, personal accountability for a lot of men absolve themselves. If you're going to the club and you're sleeping with 20 women a month, that's your problem. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, we agree 100% on that the laws need to be what people focus on, because laws can change. I mean, Roe v. Wade was overturned. I mean, you can change laws. You can disincentivize divorce industry. I've my realtor, love the guy, been divorced 4 times. And he was married to a newswoman in the state. And he said to me one time, he's like, he's just a wild dude. Like when you said I'd been divorced 4 times, I was like, okay, yeah. Is that
it's
it?
like Sean Connery status.
Right. And he's like, whatever you do, just do it yourself. Like do it because you can file
Yeah.
So it's the lawyers just take everything. I'm like, well, maybe just stop getting married, bro. You're on your 4th, just date her now,
Yeah.
And so one thing that is relevant is when you're talking about the income disparity, that creates more risk for men. Now, I'm sure that income disparity for women exists too. You just don't hear it talked about as much. So when you're talking about like a young professional man who's got his stuff together, he definitely has more pause for divorce now than he did 20 years ago. But not everybody's. There are a lot of financial guys who don't have their finances necessarily together. And
Sure.
When I got married, I had a 515, however low the credits. Like I signed up for every free T-shirt I could. It's like, what's a social security number? Here you go. Oh, a free credit card. Oh, free. Oh, I love the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah, I'll take a. So like my credit score was as low as it could physically go. And when I got married, we had to buy our first house on what's called a stated income mortgage, which basically is like, okay, he makes money, but he can't pay his bills. So like, she fixed my credit score, but we got married younger. It's not like I had millions in the bank. It's not like I had much of anything in the bank. So it is fair to say that when you have that income disparity, maybe reducing the stigma around prenuptial agreements would probably be a good thing to do.
I agree.
Get offended by that.
And you know what? The church has failed people with that. I think, honestly, I was watching Braveheart recently, and remember they invoked prima nocta, right? Where they get to sleep with
to take their daughter.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So they get married in secret. Right, they get married in secret to Mel Gibson and the very fetching lady. I don't remember the name of the actress; she escapes me. And by the way, a good example of how nudity can be done in a film and it not be pornographic.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a wedding night secret. It was erotic in the sense of like, but this is a beautiful union of 2 people. I actually really appreciate that because it's a lost art. I know
now it's all just like hardcore. Like you put in Netflix, it's like, geez, okay,
yeah, exactly. You go from Braveheart, you're like, oh look, they're getting married in the Highlands to like cuties, gah. So
yeah. Well, I remember when I'd be like, oh, remember in Lethal Weapon 2 where you see his dead girlfriend underwater and you see her boobs?
Yes.
Like it used to be that rare.
Yeah. Remember the whole 9 yards when Amanda Peet leans over the balcony?
Yeah.
She's positively dangling, bro.
Positively dangling. Yeah.
You remember that, don't you? I remember the whole 9
that's
yards.
what I mean. Now it's like I turn on, I'm like, oh, okay.
That's another danger too, because it desensitizes young men.
Pornography is bad too. Yeah.
Yeah. But going, and again, as someone who supports freedom of choice, sure, but people need to know the risks. But with talking about that, they got married in secret because of the laws, right? When the law of the land, it flagrantly flies in the face of, as Christians, you believe God's law. I think we're at that point in this country where it's like, well, if a dude who now claims to be a woman can get married to a guy, and by the way, we're going to have a multi-billion-dollar industry that incentivizes them to leave for no reason whatsoever, I think that maybe the church needs to recognize there's a difference between the covenant before God and, for example, the state, because they're basically a notary, that pastor. And then, like you said, the idea of prenuptial agreements, for some, like people say it's planning for it to fail. Well, hold on a second. If you look at it, it's like, okay, with a prenuptial agreement, if you're poor, this person's rich, you get married, you're both rich. If you leave for no reason, you go back both to where you started.
Yeah.
The flip side is if you don't, you're poor, this person's rich, you get married, you're both rich, you leave at any point in Texas, if you cheat, and now you're rich.
Same in Wisconsin, I think, too.
Yeah, that's a bastardization of that covenant that you both take, the vows that you take, and I think there are good men. My point is, we're not talking about the people who are players.
Yeah.
This sort of black pill culture.
A small percentage of the
right.
group. Yeah, yeah.
But I do think there are good men out there who are afraid because of where they find themselves.
Well, I think there has to be a happy middle ground, because obviously, as the resident feminist here, there are scenarios where, like, for example,
you're a big feminist.
Very large. I see the chonky meme going on. But so what I'll say is, like, for example, I asked my wife to retire like 2 years ago, because it was like, hey, you make X, I make X times whatever. She had a good job. She has a college degree, good job. She's maybe making $60,000 or $80,000 a year. But I'm like, well, I could work 2 more hours a week and make that, and then you can help around the house and whatever. So like 10 years from now, she doesn't have her job. She goes, so I understand that spousal support can be important, but it's way too out of control. I agree with that. And I think if I look at it, since I'm not divorced, I can't speak to that. But what I can say is, if I found myself on the market again, hypothetically, that prenup is automatic, right? Like, unless she has equal or similar wealth,
right?
That'd have to be it. Like, you'd have to find like a high earning woman, or a woman who has money, and then maybe it's not a big deal. But I feel like if they can destigmatize that part of it, like, hey, I love you, but you must have to put it up front, right? You got to put it out there up front,
right?
Like,
no, I think you're right, and I think again, it's like for good, and a big part of this too is we find ourselves here, I think, as a society, because of the lies that this is what's going to fulfill you and make you happy, and it really is, honestly, it's horrible for young women, because they have basically tried to make themselves more valuable in the dating space in the way that they would find men more valuable. Like, it's why Jeff Bezos will marry a waitress.
Right.
He doesn't care. So I know women who...
I don't care either.
No, exactly. Men don't care.
Yeah.
But
feminism told them to get a job. We didn't tell them that.
And then they say, well, what you want is toxic masculinity. For example, men want nice. They want to come home to a safe haven, right? That's the big thing. Yeah. Men don't care if you're a CEO. They don't care. They're proud of you to be...
ever has cared.
No, he's like, I'm proud that you're self-sustaining and strong opinions, that you'll stand by your convictions. But a lot of women go, I don't know why men don't, like, I make this amount of money, I've advanced I went to school. It's like, well, he doesn't care.
Gross.
You care about that in a man.
Right.
Not gross, but it's sort of irrelevant.
It is super irrelevant to men, and that was a big lie of third wave feminism that really pushed this girl boss mentality. And you're 100% right in that, like, guys do not care. They don't care that you got a job. Now, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but thanks to Bidenomics, and not just Bidenomics, but we are living in a world now where 2-income household is a necessity for a lot of people, which I think has also added to, when the ideal scenario is at least one person, if you're going to have kids, one person stays home. I'm not against women working at all.
No, choice is what they have.
It's cool, but it's like, now you have 2 income, both of you have to work to afford your apartment. That's already putting the relationship in like a weird, stressful spot.
You see each other at kind of connecting flights sometimes. Yeah.
Or if you have kids, like when I grew up, my parents worked, my mom worked first shift, my dad worked second shift, so that we weren't home alone. And they would see each other on the weekends. Because, when my dad would be sleeping, or my mom would be sleeping. And that's what they did for 13 years. Probably wasn't awesome for their marriage.
It'd be tough, yeah.
They never they never got divorced or anything, but I'm sure it wasn't awesome. Like, if I only saw my wife on weekends, and then you have like all this baggage, you know how that goes. Like, one of my all-time least favorite things to do is like, even my wife, who is literally perfect in every conceivable way.
No, she's not, but that's okay.
Sometimes, I'll come back. Like, I'm going to come back from this trip. I'm going to walk in the door. I'm going to put down my luggage, and she's going to be like, okay, so. And then there's going to be like 20
you need
things.
15 minutes of download.
Yeah, I'm like, and I imagine it's probably like that when both people work all the time. 'Cause
Yeah.
you have a small window and you're like barking out, oh, I need you to take the kids to this or this, that. It creates a lot of stress. So I think that's got to factor into it too.
Well, I think, and here's the thing is again, I think people are there really is a problem right now where men, like you talk about, are hurting. And I will tell you this, I used to be way more open about struggling with depression and stuff on the show.
Yeah.
I would discuss it all the time because I hoped that people I hoped that people wouldn't feel alone.
Yeah.
I don't talk about it anymore because it'll be weaponized against you.
I
That's
still
the problem.
do.
Yeah.
I don't care if they weaponize it against me. I think you should still talk about it, Stephen. I really do.
Maybe at some
It doesn't
point.
make you weak.
It doesn't make you weak, but they can take your kids away.
Okay, well, that's
And
fine.
that's the issue that men struggle with.
Well, that's not what you said, though.
No, but it's true. But that's what I mean by weaponizing it against you.
Okay.
And I'm not
All
speaking
right.
about me specific, but that is true. I mean, look at
I'll talk
Johnny
double
Depp.
as much.
When it started,
Yeah.
they were like, he's mentally ill. Look, Johnny Depp,
Yeah.
he drinks. Well, maybe he's drinking because you shit in the bed and you're an abusive.
That's not hot.
You know what I mean?
Amber Heard is an attractive girl, but I do not want a grumpy in my
No, neither do I. Yeah,
Yeah,
it leaves.
no.
Sometimes a woman leaves a grumpy to show she cares. I don't think that was one of those scenarios.
At least not maybe in the litter box or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like someplace where it might go.
I don't think it takes Columbo to realize that dogs don't crap in the litter box. They probably know. He's like, we don't have a cat. But no, I think it's one of those scenarios where men are hurting. They're afraid because it's like, be vulnerable. They'll often have it used against them. And so they're afraid of the risk is kind of one-sided. And that is true, societally one-sided. The blame is one-sided. And so they respond by saying all women. Now, I think, here's my point of view, is the church has failed people in a lot of ways because the truth is it's women who take children to Sunday school.
It's a recruitment issue at church, too, by the way.
It's a recruitment issue, and they know that they're going to recruit women more readily than men.
Yeah.
And so they'll call men to the mat very regularly, very rarely with women as far as what these roles are. And I've watched this happen in the church, and young men go, well, hold on a second, why am I the only one being browbeat? Including the Christian church. I'm not talking about the secular community. And at a certain point, they go, okay, I think a lot of young men, this is where I think they're hurting. You know, you hear the stats like 97 or 94% of workplace deaths are men, right? Men die younger, all of these things.
All the men are homeless. All the men are...
All of those things, right?
Yeah.
Because we occupy the spectrums of the bell curve. I think that a big part of it is young men feel like what they provide is a baseline taken for granted. So, for example, in the United States today, providing and protecting. If you do not provide and protect, you're a deadbeat. It's not a plus, it's a minimum. But it's taken for granted. It's like, it's assumed you do this.
But there aren't minimums required of the other side.
So that, I think that's the question, is they go, what are the minimums required by the other side?
Yeah.
What are those minimums? And I don't think they're as clear as, for example, like provide, protect. Like, we don't have the choice to be a stay-at-home dad if we want to attract a woman.
Yeah, I would like to have a baby and stay home. Any women? Any takers?
Right.
Any takers? Yeah.
So what is the equivalent? I think young men are saying, well, what is the equivalent as far as like, because if I stop providing, if I stop working, I have to pay I have to pay no matter what. Like, I'm legally required to.
Yeah.
What is the minimum on the other side? And they feel like I'm taking a risk with no guarantee, whereas it's required of me. And I see this because my audience is different. Young, usually Christian men, it's an internal struggle.
Well, the church would say submission is required of the other side, right?
Sure.
Of women.
But that's not on a dotted line.
Right. Well, that's not also in the cultural zeitgeist, or like that's not women are not. Like, it's actually frowned at. Like, third wave feminism made fun of those women.
Right.
Like, that's why there's this, even though I believe it's inauthentic, this pushback on like websites like TikTok for trad wives.
Yeah, it's a gimmick, but I understand the principle.
But there's a reason people are watching.
Right.
It's like porn for men. Like, oh my God, this woman.
Porn is porn for men, but yes, the principle.
Well, it's like stimulating. Because they're like, oh my God, a woman who's happy to just stay at home? This is crazy.
Right.
And then all the women that make these videos also happen to be super hot, which also helps. But it's like...
It always helps.
Yeah. But like, in general, I think men, I think you're right. Like, men are like, wait, this is an option? Like...
Yeah.
This I thought, okay, cool. Well, yeah, that would be nice. And people, I think we could get back to single income. And I do think women would be happier. Some women would be happier not going to work every day. My wife hated it.
Right.
Every day she came home, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job. And eventually I was just like, would you just quit already? Like,
right.
can we just...
But the flip side would be, what if you came in, I hate my job, would your wife ever say, would you just quit already? That's the assumed...
Well, she did tell me to quit, but...
Did she... To not work, to go...
to pursue a different project, not to not work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas you were saying maybe don't work.
I was saying just quit.
Yeah.
But fair, correct.
Which by the way, makes you a man. You're saying it's like a gift, right? You're saying like I don't want you to have to do this horrible thing that you hate. The issue, I think that, and this is what we're seeing with young men, and this is the problem again with the red pill, or sorry, the black pill, whatever people want to call it now.
Yeah, kind of the extreme red pill side.
Yes, exactly. Is young men go, okay, so they see it as a gift. In other words, I'm going to work really, really hard because I want to give you what you want, because men love their women.
I wanted to do that.
Right.
I was like, this is awesome.
But at any point, young men go, yes, but she could just decide she doesn't want to, and there's nothing I can do, and I can't do it if I'm the primary earner. And they say, so that's the contract. How do we fix that? And I say this because I have young Christian men who go, this is a pragmatic concern outside of the spiritual idea of a bond. And that's a very different problem that I see from people just going, I want to sleep with bitches and then call them hoes.
Yeah. Do you think that this is something that I've been public about on my channel? I've never been a very religious guy. I've been, ever since my dad passed, I started to kind of, I'm like Christ curious. So like I'm thinking about going back to church for the community aspect of it. And I'm not like somebody who is like, I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm less overt about it. I wouldn't even know if I would call myself Christian. Now I've started to read the Bible, and it's very difficult because I have to read every paragraph like 6 times.
Yeah.
But like, I think that you can mitigate risk by marrying the right woman. And I think maybe if more people were taking part in church or taking part in these community type things. Now, you have mentioned there are issues within the church and how they talk about the relationship that I'm unfamiliar with. But I think as a community, I think that changing the laws would be great. And it should be something. Now, I don't know how popular that's going to be.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess I don't know, because I didn't think Roe v. Wade was going to get overturned, and this is a state level thing. So you could.
Ronald Reagan said it was one of his biggest mistakes because California was the first place to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you were driving here, in Texas, you will see billboards everywhere for divorce attorneys.
It's like that in Wisconsin too.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like you can't. It's the only contract where. And we say men and women, but the truth is it really is the primary earner is kind of the person who has, and then there is a statistic that men who aren't the primary earners very, very rarely.
There are men that get alimony. It's just,
but it's very rare. They often opt not to out of shame.
I'd take it. I would want to, because this would be for all the men out there.
Yeah.
I'm cashing that check every month.
Well, I guess, but a lot of men don't. So it's I separate it into that, like the primary earner. It's there's a multi-billion-dollar industry which is really predicated on incentivizing one side to break a contract, which exists nowhere else in the business world. So it has to start at that level, and I do think it has to start with, like you said, policing their own. The issue, I think, is, men, we tend to police our own relatively well. Like, this is why when people say rape culture, I don't know about you, no one has ever in my guys' huddles like, by the way, don't we love raping?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell did you just say?
Freaking sweet, man.
Yeah, we'd all be like, oh, we're going to kick the shit out of you.
Yeah, right.
On account of you're a rapist, and we have mothers and daughters and wives. But women don't tend to be as good at policing their own because they either want to be more agreeable, and they're dominated by the loudest voices, which is feminism.
Yeah.
And so there isn't the same level of self-accountability.
What would you say if I said part of the solution is less people getting married, but having some sort of civil union still?
No, I agree.
Like marriage without the contract,
I think that we need to at a certain point when, like, for example, this happened during.
If I was single, that'd be a real option
for
me now at this stage,
Yeah, but the problem is that can't happen because of the same idea of a prenup. It would need to be destigmatized because feminists say, well, now you're trying to get away with being a piece of crap.
They might be able to sue you anyway if you're living together for a certain period of time, common law marriage. That might not work.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the solution for all this is personal accountability, where. That's the root solution of everything, but then it does kind of have to come out. The laws exist as they do, and young men are afraid of them. They really, really are. Like, I kind of had to, even when we were doing the life advice, and it kept coming back. Like, I've saved up this, and I really think she's good. And they present you with a story of a close friend and lost everything. I do agree. I think we saw this with COVID, where you say, okay, when do you obey God's law versus the law of the land? Well, when the law of the land is quite literally contradicting God's law. And I think we've reached that point with the state version of marriage. And then also on a cultural, we've certainly reached that with dating apps and hookup culture, right? So you have to recognize both.
Yeah, I think the commodification of love and the relationship and the dopamine hits of like quick hookup culture is just accelerated a crumbling institution that is marriage. But I also think this is going to sound idealistic because I'm just a Midwestern guy, but like I feel like maybe it stings less if you value your it's different with kids. I'm going to make this qualifier, okay? 'Cause
Right.
Kids change everything. But like I don't care I don't think I would care if she took half my money. I don't think I would care.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because I'm in a different financial situation. I'm like, I'll still be okay,
Right.
kind of thing. I don't mean, that's not like a humble brag, but I think if somebody's got $35,000 in the bank and they're like, I'm trying to restart my life,
Yeah.
and she took half that, plus the lawyer took the rest, that's not good. You know, that's if I'm in a toxic, terrible relationship, the money for me is like the least of the reason that I'm staying.
Yeah, no, and I think it is at least for. Let me give you kind of, and I think this is where. And again, the
Maybe I
problem
feel
is,
different
Well,
if I was in that,
yes,
you know?
but the problem is you can't say, "Hey, we need to change the marriage laws," and then say, "By the way, bang a bunch of hoes." Say, "Well, hold on a second."
Well,
those-
yeah,
you know, that's a
yeah.
problem because you're saying, "Well, hold on a second." Well,
You can
if
do one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Story was kind of told to me from someone, and it was this. It's not about, like you said, it's not about the end point. It's about those years in between where you can go, "Hey, look, this is what you sign up for a partnership," and you say, these are the things that I want or I need. If you're for example, a man right now in a state like Wisconsin, and a man told me a story of a woman said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do any of those things. If you bring it up again, I'm going to leave you and take your stuff," and walked out of the room. And he immediately realized it was true.
Yeah.
That's a horrible. It's like giving one side nukes and saying you have to take it. And that is not what a relationship should be. But that's because it's been perverted by the state. And a lot of young men are afraid. It's not about I don't think it's about money. I think it's about the dynamics of the relationship where if something goes bump in the night, the young man is expected to put his life on the line or he's a deadbeat. He doesn't have
powerless.
choice.
Yeah.
Men don't have choice if they want to have a relationship. Men really don't. That is true. You do have to fulfill certain obligations, and I think
You have choice, but
well, you don't have choice to be a stay-at-home guy not working and
Generally
plan to
not,
find
yeah.
a good woman.
Right.
But
Unless
a woman can if she's very nice. She offers other things, brings other things to the table. Like he doesn't. She could be a waitress. Like I said, and Jeff Bezos will marry her.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, but it also speaks to just different value systems, right? Like,
Sure.
There's a reason that, like, when I got with my wife, and we started dating when we were 17. So I've been with her since I was 17 years old. And
You like him young.
yeah, I robbed that cradle too. Yeah, actually, she robbed my cradle.
She 18 and you were 17?
Oh no, actually, I robbed her cradle.
Oh yeah, you just realized you just had confessed to being statutorily.
Yeah,
Salted.
no, we waited till marriage, Stephen.
Oh,
but
good. I mean, it's still the age is the age. But.
Yeah, yeah, right. Isn't there a statute of limitations? Anyway,
It changed with Eugene Carroll. Careful.
Yeah, that's right. I just think like it's weird because my perspective is like when I started dating someone, I had nothing.
Right.
And we were like rubbing 2 nickels together to pay, like doing I'd go to Walmart at like midnight, allegedly, and write a check for $20 over that, I knew I didn't have because I needed to because Walmart would let you write a check over.
Everyone in the line hated you.
Yeah, everyone hated me, but
Take
I
out your
needed that
check, we're like, this ass.
Yeah, well, they were doing that anyway. But so like we were forged in poorness and struggle. So like once we had money, I guess I value it much less. But I look at the perspective of my friends who have never been married but have accumulated, I don't know what their bank accounts are, but I assume they don't have a woman, so they have plenty of money. I mean, they shop, right? But they have their things, that my friends have their toys, their jet skis, their boats, their planes, their whatever. And I worry, this for a different day, but layer into this AI women and all these like
Yeah, no, I agree.
these AI sex bots and stuff that are out there. Western civilization is in trouble. Like
Yep.
men are already choosing not to marry. Imagine you could have a different wife every night. And this is our lifetime too. I'm not talking flying cars.
No,
Back to the
I get it.
Future.
Yeah.
In 5 years, these things will be everywhere,
Although hopefully men will realize that AI sex bot could end up like Megan,
Or perhaps they will sue you for half. And
Yes,
they become sentient and sue you.
Instead of iRobot feeling pain, it's like, I can make money.
Yeah, or it'll be like, what's that other movie? Deus Ex?
Oh yeah, was
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
Yeah.
That was pretty creepy.
That was
pretty creepy.
Yeah.
But quite a figure on that robot. Yeah.
He was.
All right, well, look, we're going to continue. It's The Quartering at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Rumble. Of course, you can follow him on X. We're going to continue here on Mug Club discussing all this. Well, I want to say what else? I don't know. Screw the notepad. Right now, if you're on Rumble, click that button. You get to join Mug Club. And is this on YouTube? Piss off.